Welcome to the Bourbon Van. I'm Phil.
I'm Julie.
It is Whiskey in the Van Wednesday, and today we are drinking Old Forester.
And Norman's excited.
So is his mom.
Yep.
We are not in the van once again.
It's cold outside.
Extenuating circumstances and a little bit of an overnight cold snap have brought us back to a bit of reality here, but hopefully by the end of this week we'll be back out there.
80s by the end of the week.
Might be too hot for the van. We'll be back in the house again. Old Forester. Today we are drinking a bottle that, I don't know, if nobody had ever introduced me to this bottle, I don't know if I would ever have decided to pull one off the shelf. Old Forester Statesman. If you're like me, you walked past this bottle 1,000 times or more at the liquor store. Seems like a lot of trips to the liquor store, but I walk back and forth a lot. I ignored this bottle for years because I looked at it and I thought, well, that looks like some sort of Denim brand crossover. Like, I had no idea, like, ride cows, eat denim, drink Statesman. I had no idea what I was looking at, quite honestly.
We're gonna get copyrighted on that.
Fine. But I just had no idea what in the heck it was. I thought it was some sort of like marketing crossover with a denim company. I really did. And then a friend of ours brought it over, Grizz, gave us this bottle last November, and we kind of loved it. And this is the second or third bottle since then. Now we thought it was a good time to sort of introduce this bottle and talk about what it actually is, because it turns out it's not a denim crossover.
It's not.
It is a marketing thing. It was a collaboration with Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, the movie. I honestly don't really remember much about that movie. The lead character's name is Eggy. That's the takeaway for me.
I think his name is Eggsy.
Sure, that's miles better. Anyway, Eggsy saves the world, I guess. I think that's the theme of the movie. But
Quite handily, if I remember.
no, did he just dominate?
I mean,
You remember that? You don't seem to remember that
there was
movie
like
either.
cowboys and a British guy,
That's-
Samuel L. Jackson. Oh no, he died in the first one, so no Samuel.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
All right, well, cowboys and stuff, I think my
Yeah.
denim guess was pretty accurate here. So this bottle we had no expectations for. Finally got the opportunity to try it. We thought it was great, and it's a funny bottle because you would think that this bottle with this shape and this proof point, 95 proof, you would think that this is part of the Whiskey Row series. It doesn't have that designation, but the bottle shape matches the rest of those back there, and at 95 proof, it falls right between the 1870 original batch, which is at 90 proof, and the 1897 Bottled and Bond, which of course is at 100 proof. Considering that this movie, Kingsman, came out 2017, I believe, and this bottle's still around, I think the whiskey is outliving the reach of the movie, and I think that's because it's really good whiskey, and I think if they could figure out a Whiskey Row date to apply to it, it might already be part of the Whiskey Row series. I have no idea if that's true. I just know what I think about this bottle, so take all that with a big grain of salt. So the story behind this bottle is that they take it from the warmest parts of the warehouse. I imagine that encourages lots of interaction between the whiskey and the barrel. This bottle really surprised us, and if you haven't checked it out yet, by the end of this video, you might have an idea of what to expect in it, and you might go for it as well. This bottle sells for $55 here in Oregon. It is 95 proof, and it's thought to be aged somewhere between 4 and 5 years. I think we need to get into the nose and the palate and the finish and the value and the comparable bottles. Let's get into this thing.
I'm ready.
All right.
So right off the bat, very sweet nose, some oakiness there for sure.
Yeah,
a
there's
little
like
bit
a
of cherry.
oak spice.
Yeah. And I actually am getting a hint of that Old Forester banana smell, which
Yeah, for
I
sure.
feel like last time I drank this, I didn't get that. So maybe I'm just a little attuned to it right now.
Look at you. I get a lot of brown sugar on this, a hint of maybe a little bit of milk chocolate, a touch of leather, but not much. It's not really earthy. This is a sweet whiskey.
Very sweet. It's overall a very pleasant nose.
Yeah, there's a little hint of ethanol, but the main thing that I get on this is vanilla, but like vanilla bean. It's almost where that vanilla can sometimes be really, really strong, really powerful. That's really what I'm getting here.
It's like more of a pure vanilla.
Yeah. It's not the sweet extract or something like that. It's pretty aggressive vanilla.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's do it. Wow. That is like a cherry cola everything on that one.
That oak wants to carry me away, though.
Wow.
Are you getting a ton of oak on that?
Well, I got the cherry cola. I got a little bit of the heat and the ethanol there. Oak undertones. That's a nice first sip.
Yeah, and the cola for me is showing up a little bit later.
Oh.
It's almost like a malty sweetness. Like, oh man, it's really nice. Wow, the vanilla, the longer I sit with it, the more the vanilla shows up. That oak wood, there's kind of a lot here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am getting a lot of cherry, but it's almost muted a bit. It's not like a sharp or a very sweet cherry. You can tell it's there, but some of that oak is really shining through there. So you get kind of like a nice cherry, deep oak.
Deep.
The brown, the brown sugars, the vanilla is coming through.
You know what's sort of funny on this one? When I'm talking about cherry, a lot of times with bourbon, I'm talking about cherry candy, like a hard candy or something like that.
Yeah.
This is black cherry. This is a real cherry fruit. Like every time I take a sip, I feel like I'm about to spit out a pit. There is a spice.
Yep.
It doesn't strike me as cinnamon. Baking spices, more like maybe a nutmeg, but it's a balanced spice. It's not shocking. It's not hot. There's a little heat there from the ethanol, a touch of heat from the spice, and it does have rye in the mash bill, so maybe that's where that's coming from, but just a pleasant, cohesive, flavorful whiskey.
So it's getting hotter the more you drink it, but not an unpleasant heat. It's just like a really nice heat that actually accentuates some of the baking spices that I think you're talking about. A little bit of cinnamon, you're right, not tons. Vanilla is definitely in there. I keep sticking at that cola because it really does taste like a little bit of a cola flavor to it.
Well, the other thing is that this has a tremendous mouthfeel. It's got a great body to it. It coats, and that oakiness that you get with that coating really hangs around, and even a tiny bit of the leather there. But what the mouthfeel here is bringing is a little bit of that dryness, and that comes through on the finish too. The overarching flavor, the thing that keeps coming back to me the more that I sip this, confectioner's sugar. It is powdered sugar. It dries your mouth out like powdered sugar.
Yeah.
And there's even a little hint of maybe like a peppermint on the back end, like a peppermint candy, just a little bit. It doesn't last forever, but the mint, the oak, and the vanilla are the finishing takeaways for me. There's a little chocolate throughout and all those other flavors that we mentioned, but from the start to the finish, this kind of takes you on a ride. It's a great glass of whiskey.
It is a really great mouthfeel, but it does dry it out. I would agree also with the finish. It's not super long lasting. The flavors kind of linger.
They do.
And it's maybe just because they're more familiar flavors or they're sweeter flavors. I'm not sure. It's not long lasting, but they are memorable. Do you like that?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. I don't have anything to add to that. What a perfect tasting note. I feel
That's why I'm here.
I feel like I could take a break.
So let's talk value. The Statesman comes in around $55, and for me personally, it's a little bit of a tricky situation for that one because the 1910, which you know that I love, maybe my favorite bottle on the shelf.
Yeah.
Comes in at $53, so $2 cheaper. It's hard for me to be like, I grabbed this over the 1910.
Yeah.
However, it's different enough that I can appreciate the price range it's in. Though part of me does linger on that it was made for a movie-ish. It's a little bit of a marketing ploy.
It's upsetting because the 1910 goes into a second barrel. That's a time-consuming process. It is a labor-intensive process. It's only 2 proof points less than this one.
Yeah.
Why is the 1910 $53 and this one's more expensive than that? I know that they're pulling these barrels from supposedly the hottest part of the warehouse. Sure, there's probably fewer of them, but this seems readily available. We see this everywhere we go. So $55, when you compare it to the rest of the Old Forester line, seems a little bit high. We will be doing a tasting where we put the 1870 and the 1897 up against this bottle. So because the 1920, the 1910, we already know that we love those. But the best of the rest, let's see where we would place those other bottles, those other 3 bottles. I think outside of Old Forester, because this carries the same mash bill as all those other Old Forester bottles, the Whiskey Row bottles, they all taste a little bit similar and still they're a little bit different. But when you talk about outside of Old Forester, what bottles are comparable to this one? You know, the Old Forester has its own flavor. Some people really dislike the funk on the finish. Then there's us. We seem to
I love the funk.
It seems like every time we taste Old Forester, we're like, this is great. So it is hard for us to look at this bottle and say that it's not worth $55. The only time that we don't like that price point is when we compare it against the 1910, and we think that this maybe should be 50 or below.
And I'll be honest, if you blindfolded this and I didn't know what distillery it was from, I'd be like, oh yeah, totally, $55, I'm in. I wish it was $45. I think that's where I'm going with this. I would pay $55 for it. I wish it was $45.
We've paid $55 2 or 3 times for it, so that
yeah.
makes sense. I'm eager to put this in a blind tasting against some more expensive bottles because I really think it's going to hold up.
Yeah.
So if you like the Old Forester flavor profile, if you like the Whiskey Row series, this bottle seems like a no-brainer. This definitely should be on your shelf. But when we talk comparable bottles, you're in that neighborhood, $55. I don't know, there's a lot over 60, there's a lot under 50, but in that neighborhood, there's not a ton. So we're gonna kind of pick a few bottles that this just reminds us of. The first one is the Henry McKenna 10-year bottled in bond, single barrel product. This has got a little bit of that spice like that. It's got a little bit of the sweetness. That bottle, it's priced $50 and over a lot of times. And it's hard to find. And being a single barrel product, it's not always super consistent. When you compare this to that, I would still take this one personally, especially considering it's readily available. So that you have to factor that into the price. If you can find it regularly on the shelf, it's not sold out everywhere you go, maybe you pay a little more for that convenience. There are a couple of Knob Creek bottles priced in the neighborhood that I think are solid whiskeys and really value-wise compare well here. Flavor-wise, totally different story. They are not the same at all.
I was about to say, it's hard to compare a Knob Creek to an Old Forester. Their
So
profiles are just wildly different.
Yeah, and you can appreciate both, but recognize they're super different.
Yeah.
One other distillery that I think compares here when you talk about sweet and spicy, Four Roses Small Batch Select sells for $10 more than this. Single Barrel sells for $15 less than this. So,
Yeah.
But if you consider the flavor profile, somewhere in there, those Four Roses bottles kind of compete a little bit. Honestly, they're different enough and they're far enough off price-wise. I hate to say it, but this bottle is kind of in a class by itself. I think we're gonna need a little help from you out there. What are you passing this up for? What are you grabbing off the shelf at that price point that you think is better than this? Because we really, really like this bottle, but we're curious because it's not like we go into the liquor store and we say we're gonna buy something for $55 today. There is one other bottle that this actually reminds me of a lot, and I think some people are gonna be either excited or upset by this one, but the mouthfeel is the thing that draws this comparison for me. Blanton's Single Barrel sells a little over $50, $55-ish dollars, so it's at that price point.
True.
It's not nearly as readily available.
No.
It's not as spicy as this. However, the mouthfeel, the sweetness, the satisfaction level, this actually kind of ticks all those boxes for me. I actually think that I would find myself pulling this off the shelf just as readily as I would pull Blanton's off the shelf. And I like Blanton's, don't get me wrong, but this one being readily available, same price, 2 proof points higher, I think Old Forester Statesman is a great bottle.
That's actually kind of an interesting comparison.
Flavor-wise, it's not really that similar.
No, but they're just unique enough where they don't really fit into a category. The Statesman's actually really interesting that it was kind of developed as a marketing ploy a bit.
I think it overshot their expectations by a huge amount.
But I understand that Blanton's wasn't necessarily a marketing ploy, but it does have a little bit of that mystique, which I think is what they were going for in this bottle.
Right, yeah, the story is a big part of, let's be honest, most of the whiskeys on the shelf these days.
Yeah.
This one, the story is not nearly as interesting as most, but the flavor is there, and I think this is a bottle that's worth your time. If you've been walking past this over and over and thousands of times at the liquor store, if you go to the liquor store as often as I do, it might be time to reach for this bottle. It's a solid pour.
So if you're looking to uncover some truths in bourbon, check out the Statesman.
Uncover some truths in bourbon. And if you want to watch a movie that you know, I've completely
May
forgotten
or may
about.
not
You should
be
probably
memorable.
check out Statesman 2: The Golden Circle. I honestly think we need to rewatch it because I don't know anything about it. But
Totally.
hopefully this was a helpful video for you. Let us know what you're drinking instead of this bottle. Let us know if you've tried this, what you think of this bottle. If you enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Check us out on Instagram at The Bourbon Van. Like, comment, and subscribe.
From wherever we are.
Oh, to wherever you are. Cheers.
Cheers.